In this video, we are going to continue with our discussions on the smart narrative. So in the last video, we looked at how we can add a smart narrative to a tooltip to provide additional insight to our users. So we came up with this tooltip where we have a smart narrative on top of it, giving us the insight regarding the line items our users are going to hover their mouse over in the income statement. So if you take the operating income as an example, the smart narrative here gives you the change from the prior period as well as the year-on-year change. When you pick any of these line items, you tend to get this smart insight on top of the waterfall chart, giving you additional information regarding the line item. But in this video, we are going to come up with Insight Pane, where we are going to provide additional insight to our users using the smart narrative. So let me show you a demo of what we are going to build in this video. So I'll come to the sample file here. And now if you take a look at this, we have this performance insight pane here. So when our users click on the expand option here, they'll be able to expand this insight pane, from which they will be able to get the insight for these key line items here. So we have for our revenue, the cost of revenue, operating expenses, and then earning before interest and taxes, as well as the net income. So here for each of the items, we are getting the value for the selected period our users are going to select from the slicer. So here if they pick 2019, they'll be able to get the revenue for 2019 as well as the revenue for the prior period. And then we also have this year-over-year change percentage that we are also providing them. So for each of these items, they'll be able to get the value for the current period that they have selected from the slicer here, as well as the value for the prior period. And then it gives you the year-over-year change as well. And this is what we are going to work on in this video. So let's go to our demo file. And here what I will do is to get rid of this text box, and then before we be able to do that, there are some few measures that we don't have in our data model. So we are going to look at how we can insert those measures. So if you come to the sample file here, we have this year-on-year or year-over-year changes for these line items. We don't have that in our data model, so we need to go up and then hit those measures. So what I will do is to use a smart measure to be able to get those insights. So what I will do is to go to my income calculations table. Then I'll go to my home tab. Then within the calculations group, I have this quick measure here. So that's what I'm going to use to calculate those measures. So the first is to get my revenue year-over-year change. So here with the calculations, I'm going to pick year-over-year change, and the base value, I'll go to my income calculations and look for my revenue. So here I'll drag my revenue as the base value, and then when it comes to date, I'll go to my calendar table and get the date. With the number of periods, we are looking at just one. So we are looking at the prior period and then the current period or the selected period. So here we are going to maintain it at 1 and then click OK. So here we have our revenue year-over-year change here. So what I need to do is to edit this. So I'm going to remove this dot date here and make it just calendar date column. So I'm going to delete this and maintain it at that and then press enter. So what I will do is to insert a card here, which I'm going to use to determine if I'm actually calculating the right values. So I'll pick my revenue year-over-year, and then we are having negative 8.95% here for 2020. When you pick 2019, we also have this. When you pick 2018, we have blank here because we don't have any prior period if you are looking at the 2018. So I'll pick 2019 here. Now the next is to get my cost of revenue year-over-year. So I will select my income calculations table to make sure that the measure will be in this home table. Then I'll go to quick measure and then pick year-over-year. And then my base value is going to be my cost of revenue. So I'll drag this here and then go to my calendar table and get the date. So I'll click OK. So now I have my cost of revenue year-over-year. So I'll select this and then edit that to remove the dot date. So here I'll select my card and then use this on the card. So now we have this as well. Then I'll do that for my total operating expenses as well. So I'll select this, go to quick measure, then calculations, year-over-year change. Then the base value, I'm going to pick my total operating expenses. the base date or my date. I'll go to my calendar, pick my date here, and click OK. So I have this one here. So I'll edit it to remove this .date option and press enter. And now I'm going to select my card. The card is already selected, so I'm going to use this on the card, and now we have this. Now let's do that for our earning before interest and taxes. So I'll go to my income calculations, quick measure, year over year change, base calculation. We are going to pick our operating income or earning before interest and taxes. So I'll bring this one here and then go to my calendar and get my date. Now we have this. So what I will do is to select this card and then make sure I'm using this measure here. So this is for my operating income year over year. So I'll use this on the card. Having 0 here. If you pick this, seems we have a problem with this. So what I will do is to select my operating income year over year and then remove this .date. And now everything is working perfectly. The next thing I need is to get my net income. So I'll come to my income calculations table, pick my quick measure, and then pick year over year. And here I'm going to, my base calculation is going to be my net income. Net income. Then my calendar table will be for the date, and then I'll click OK. So now we have our net income year over year. So I'm going to edit it to remove this .date. So I'm going to use this on the card. So let me select this card and I pick my net income year over year. And now we also have this here. So now let's take a look at the sample file. We have just 5 line items that we are looking at: the revenue, the cost of revenue, operating expenses, and then earning before interest and taxes, and then the net income. So we have done all these. So we can go ahead with the Smart Insights. So what I will do is to remove this text box or this card. Then I'll go to insert and then insert a text box. So I'm going to bring it here and then expand this. So I'm going to start with a title, which is going to be Performance Insight. So I'll add this emoji or icon here. So I'm going to select this and then bold it and increase the font size. So now we are going to start with the revenue. So I'll type this and bring in this icon here, and then it will be for my revenue. So what we are saying is, let me onboard it. So what we are saying is that revenue was that. Okay, so we are going to use our revenue. So let's look at the sample file here. So revenue was this amount in the selected period as compared to this. So here we need a measure which is going to give us the revenue for the selected period from the slicer. So if they pick 2020, we need a measure which is going to give us the revenue for 2020. If you pick 2019, a measure will pull up that value for us, as well as the value for the prior period. So here, if you are looking at 2019, we need a measure which is give us the value in 2019 and then the value in 2018. So if you compare this to the income statement here, for 2019, this is our total revenue. And then this was the total revenue in the prior period, which is 2018. Then this gives us the year over year change. So these are going to be measures because these are dynamic values based on the year our users are going to select. Apart from that, all the rest here are fixed value or absolute values. So what we need to do is to get a measure which will pull the revenue for the current or the selected period here. So what I will do is to come back to this, and here I'll come to my value here to add my measure. So the measure we are going to use is the revenue measure, which is going to give us the revenue for the selected period. So I'll type revenue, and then I'll pick this. So now I have this revenue here. So I'll save this. So now if you check this, we have selected 2020. So if you compare this to the income statement here, see that in 2020, this was our total revenue. If you pick 2019, it gives you the revenue for 2019 here. If you pick 2018, it gives you the revenue for 2018 here. So revenue was this in the selected year as compared to, so here we need the value for the prior period. So here I'll come to my value section and look at revenue last year. So we already have these measures in our data model. That's why we are getting them here. So I'll select this and then save it. So now this is going to give us the revenue for the prior period. So if I select 2019, to give me the value for 2019 and then the value for 2018. Okay, so here we are saying revenue was this in the selected year as compared to this value in the prior period. Then this represents a year-over-year change of, so we need a measure which is going to give us the year-over-year change for revenue. So I'll come to my value section here and then do revenue year-over-year and then add this and then save it here. So now we have this here. So what I need to do is to give a space here. So now what I will do is to copy this and use it for the other line items. So I'll copy this and then paste it here. So now the next item will be our cost of revenue. And now we need a measure which is going to give us the cost of revenue for the selected year. So what I will do is to delete this and then come to my value section here. So what I will do is to cancel this and come to my value section and then get my cost of revenue. So I'll click on this and then save it. So now we have the cost of revenue here in the selected year as compared to this. So we need a measure which is going to give us the cost of revenue for the prior period from the selected year. So what I will do is to come to my value section and then look at cost of revenue last year. So I'm going to select this and then save this. So now the next thing I need is to get my year-over-year change for the cost of revenue. So I'm going to select this and then come to my value section here and then do cost of revenue year-over-year. Now we have it here. So I'll save this and then add it here. So now we have completed that for the cost of revenue. So if you compare the values to what we have on the income statement here, we take our cost of revenue for 2019 is this 12 million here. It's the same thing that we have here. For the prior period, we have 9.9, which is the same here. And then we'll have this year-over-year change as well. So I'll copy this and then use it for the other line items. So the next item is our operating expenses. So I'm going to change this to operating expenses. And now we need to get a measure which is going to give us operating expense for the current year our users are going to select. So I'll type total operating expenses. So we have it here. So I'm going to add it. Then we need to get for the prior period. So I'm going to select this here and then come to add value. Then we look at the total operating expenses last year. We don't have that here. Last year. Okay, I'll pick this and then save it. So now we also have this here, which is giving us that. So if you compare this to our total operating expense here, for the current year that we have selected here, for the current year, which is 2019, this is the total operating expense. For the prior period is 1.6 million. If you compare it to this, we are not getting the right value. So let's go to the data model and find out if you actually have that. So I'll come to my income calculations table and look for my total operating expense last year. It seems we don't have it here. What we have here is for last quarter. So what I will do is to copy this and then create a new measure for the last year. So I'll come to new measure, and then I'm going to paste the DAX that we copied. So this is going to be for last year, and now here, instead of the quarter, we are going to change it to year. Then press enter. So now what I will do is to select this and then delete this one here, and then come to my value section and then add the new measure that we did. That's the total operating expenses last year. So we have it here. Let's see. Now let me do it again. Last year. So we have it here. So I'm going to add this. So now if you compare this to what we have in the income statement, let me save this. So if you compare this to that, you see that we are having the right value. Now let me delete this I in front of the number here. So if I select 2020, this is going to give us the value in 2020, and then the prior period is going to be 5.1, which is correct here. So what I will do is to give a space here. And now let's do that for the other items. So I'll copy this and then come here. Now we need to change the year over year as well. Okay, we did for the year over year. So now let's do that for our earning before interest and taxes. So I'll come here, earning before interest and taxes. So now we need a measure which is going to give us that. So here I'll come to my value and then look for my operating income. So I'll select this and then save it. So now if you compare this to our operating income for 2020, this is the value. Now we need a measure which is going to give us our operating income for the prior period. So I'll delete this, come to the value section, and then look at my operating income last year. So I'll pick this and then save it as well. So with this, we have it here. So if you compare this to that, you can see that we are having the right value. Now we need a measure which will give us the year over year operating income. So I'll come to add value here, and then I will do operating income year over year. Now I have it here. So I'll save this as well. So now let's go to the next one, which is the last one, which is going to be our net income. So I'll pick net income. Now we need a value for this here. So I'll delete this, come to my value section, and then look for my net income measure. So I have it here. So I'm going to add it. Then we need one that will give us the measure for the prior period, or the value for the prior period. So here I'll come to the value, and then I'll type net income last year. You have it here as well. So I'll add this. So if you compare this to what we have here for 2020, this is the value. Let me bring my space here. And then for 2019, this is the value that we have here. We need to get the year over year change as well. So I'll delete this and then come to my value and then look at net income year over year. So I have it here. So I'm going to add it. So now we have the measures here. Now what I will do is to bold these guys. So I'm going to select this and then bold it. The font should be 10, just like the other text. I'm going to select this and then pick 10 and then bold it. I'm going to select this, make the font 10 and then bold it. Select this, bold it, make the font 10, and then select this, make the font 10 and then bold it. So now we have it here. So what I'm going to do now is to turn off the background of this. So I'll go to background and then turn it off. So what I will do is to hit Ctrl A to select all the text here, and then I'll come to the font and then change the color to white. So now we have it this way. So now instead of turning it off, let's turn or change the background to black instead. So here I'm going to pick the color black. So now we have it this way. So what we need to do is to resize this and then move it up a bit to cover the visuals that we have here. Now the next thing that we need to do is to get a bookmark which our users are going to use here to expand the insight or to collapse the insight. And it's the same thing that we have in this sample file here. So here they'll be able to collapse it, and then here they'll be able to expand it. So in the next video, we are going to work on this bookmark where our users are going to use to expand or collapse the insight pane. So see you in the next video as we look at the bookmark for this.